Rich millionaire takes mistress to try on a wedding dress. Poor wife in black appears and shocks everyone. In the heart of Beverly Hills, where wealth and glamour mingle with secrecy and betrayal, one shocking event would turn an elite social circle upside down. Alexander Kensington, a young real estate magnate with a flair for lavish parties, seemed to have it all: staggering fortune, glittering connections, and a devoted wife, Celeste, pregnant with their first child. Yet behind the gates of his palatial estate, Alex nursed a dangerous secret one that led him to a posh bridal boutique alongside his alluring mistress. The stage was set for a perfect storm of heartbreak and revenge. Clad in black and carrying a life within her, Celeste walked in and unraveled the entire charade. Alexander Kensington was born to privilege. His father, Christopher Kensington, built one of the largest real estate networks on the West Coast, acquiring properties that ranged from sleek downtown Los Angeles skyscrapers to lavish vacation homes on the shores of Malibu. By the time Alex was in college, he was already gracing the society pages as a suave party host with a keen business mind. Growing up in the lap of luxury, Alex learned to navigate an environment where appearances meant everything. His mother, Evelyn Kensington, insisted he develop impeccable manners and dress in the finest suits. By 25, he'd launched Kensington Commercial Holdings, a spin-off from his father's empire, focusing on luxury condos catering to the upper echelon of Hollywood celebrities. But behind his polished exterior, Alex craved the adrenaline rush of high-stakes deals and the admiration of anyone in his orbit. Money was never an issue. Respect and envy were the currencies he truly valued. Despite the tempting offers of countless socialites, starlets, heiresses, and daughters of influential men, he found himself smitten with Celeste Hathaway, an accomplished interior designer from a more modest background. She had grown up in Santa Monica, the daughter of a retired teacher, Diana Hathaway, and a small business owner, Michael Hathaway. Celeste's poise and intellect intrigued Alex, who was accustomed to superficial relationships. Her humility and dedication to her craft won his heart in a way no fleeting fling ever had. Their courtship was swift, fueled by breathless weekend getaways to Napa, the 6 tickets to art galas, and heartfelt, late-night conversations about the future. When he proposed to her at a candlelit beach in Maui, she tearfully accepted. For a while, they lived in a warm bubble of wedded bliss. Celeste's design business soared with new clients, while Alex's developments multiplied, the profits pouring in. Then, with hearts full of excitement, they discovered Celeste was pregnant. The Kensington estate buzzed with the news of a future heir, and Celeste began reimagining one of the mansion's spacious rooms as a nursery. Everything felt right until the first hints of trouble flickered on the horizon. Alex started spending longer hours at business dinners, occasionally missing important prenatal milestones. Celeste, initially sympathetic, grew concerned. She wanted to believe stress at work was fueling his erratic schedule, but in her heart, she began to sense something more sinister creeping into their marriage. Rumors circulated about Alex partying with a mystery woman at private clubs and discreet lounges. Unwilling to let suspicions poison her, Celeste chose to trust her husband. Little did she know how close those rumors were to the heartbreaking truth. In the dazzling orbit of Los Angeles high society, secrets rarely stay buried. Alex's life was already jam-packed, managing a growing real estate empire, attending glitzy charity balls, dining with celebrity clients, yet a thirst for novelty gnawed at him. He was 31, a new father-to-be, with the weight of paternal and professional expectations pressing down from all sides. Sometimes he felt caged by the image he had spent a lifetime constructing. That was when Dahlia Redwood swept into his life like a fresh breeze over smoldering embers. Dahlia was a stunning former model hailing from Seattle, with emerald green eyes and long, dark hair that fell in sleek waves down her back. She'd come to Los Angeles with her own ambitions, rumor had it she was searching for a wealthy patron to finance her dream fashion line. She introduced herself at a star-studded charity event for pediatric cancer research, one that Alex and Celeste were co-chairing. However, Celeste had fallen ill that evening due to a surge in morning sickness, leaving Alex to attend alone. Dahlia's approach was subtle. She thanked him for his philanthropic contributions, praising his empathy and business acumen. She listened intently as he spoke about his developments, her gaze unwavering, fueling the impression that she found him fascinating. Over the following weeks, Alex found himself crossing paths with Dahlia at various functions, some legitimate, others orchestrated by Dahlia's quiet manipulations. Every time their eyes met, an unspoken connection crackled between them. For Alex, it was an ego-boosting thrill. Dahlia wasn't simply another social climber looking for a quick fling. She was strategic, with an air of independence he found seductive. When she casually mentioned wanting to break into the real estate scene, Alex offered to show her around a few of his properties. What started as harmless tours discussing layout, design, and potential marketing angles gradually morphed into intimate dinners behind tinted restaurant windows, away from prying eyes. While Celeste struggled with the physical and emotional roller coaster of pregnancy, Dahlia offered Alex an escape from the everyday. She was brash, confident, and free-spirited, qualities that temporarily made him forget the responsibilities piling up at home. Yes, there was guilt, but he convinced himself it was just a passing indulgence, a clandestine fling that would never impact his real life. But affairs have a way of spiraling out of control. Dahlia soon insinuated herself more deeply into Alex's daily routine. She became his plus one for exclusive gatherings that Celeste, weary from the pregnancy, was too exhausted to attend. Whispers among the staff at Kensington Commercial Holdings multiplied. Meanwhile, Celeste, preoccupied with prenatal checkups and the finishing touches on the nursery, remained oblivious, at least outwardly. Slowly, a tension grew between Alex and Celeste, manifesting in small disagreements: the paint color for the nursery, her choice of OB-GYN, his lateness to yet another ultrasound appointment. She chalked it up to standard pregnancy stress, never suspecting the real reason for Alex's distraction. Even when her best friend, Tanya Willis, hinted that Alex had been spotted at a cocktail lounge with an unidentified brunette, Celeste dismissed it as a rumor. She had faith in her marriage vows, in the gentleman who had once flown all the way from Los Angeles to New York just to propose in front of her favorite art installation. That trust was about to shatter spectacularly, and Dahlia Redwood would be the match that lit the fuse. The tipping point came on a sunny Saturday afternoon, roughly 6 months into Celeste's pregnancy. Celeste had just finished a meeting with a high-profile client for her interior design firm and was looking forward to a quiet evening with Alex, maybe indulging in their usual routine of home-cooked dinner and a movie. But Alex had other plans. "I'm sorry, darling," he said, avoiding direct eye contact as he buttoned his tailored navy suit. "There's a critical meeting at one of our new Beverly Hills properties. I need to finalize some architectural changes with the contractor." Celeste frowned slightly, but forced a smile. She understood the demands of big business, or so she told herself. "It's Saturday," she said gently, resting a protective hand on her belly. "Can't it wait till Monday?" He shook his head, grabbing his car keys. "No, unfortunately not. Time is money in real estate. I won't be long, I promise." He leaned in to kiss her forehead. She noticed a faint whiff of expensive cologne, one he rarely wore. She had chosen that scent as a gift for special occasions, and it sent a chill through her to realize he was wearing it on a mundane work errand. Over the next few hours, Celeste busied herself reorganizing baby items and finalizing color schemes for the nursery's wallpaper. She tried not to let her mind wander to the creeping worry that had been building in her heart. Yet as the clock neared 7 p.m. with no message from Alex, she decided to check on him. Her calls went directly to voicemail. At 8 p.m., the phone finally chimed. The text read, "Still busy with contractor. I'll call you soon." The short, curt phrasing made her stomach churn. Something felt off. An hour later, she tried again to reach him, with no luck. By 10 p.m., she went to bed alone, uneasy and quietly miserable. The next morning, after a sleepless night, she found Alex in the kitchen, sipping black coffee. Already dressed in casual attire, he looked pensive, as though something weighed heavily on his mind. "Everything sorted out with the contractor?" she asked, voice laced with subdued tension. He nodded, stepping away to rinse his mug. "Yeah, we had some design snags, but it's all handled." She searched his face for any telltale sign of deceit, but the facade was seamless. She kissed him goodbye as he claimed he needed to go into the office for paperwork. As Celeste watched him drive away, she noticed a lipstick smudge on his crisp white collar, barely visible, a subtle shade of burgundy. Her heart lurched. She wore nude shades, never burgundy. A cold wave of dread washed over her, yet she resisted the urge to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was a stain from something else. She prayed she was overreacting, but she also felt her trust in him slipping further through her fingers, like grains of sand. From that moment on, small occurrences amassed into a mountain of suspicions. Unfamiliar perfume lingering on his suit jacket, last-minute business trips without prior mention, phone calls taken in hushed tones. Celeste started to piece things together, though she had no concrete proof. If it was an affair, she wondered, why risk everything? Why do it now, of all times, when she was pregnant with his child? She was on the verge of confronting him directly until the fateful day she received a tip from an unlikely source, Jonathan "John" Lowell, Alex's longtime driver. John had worked for the Kensington family for over a decade and had grown fond of Celeste. Concerned about her well-being, he discreetly handed her a note. "He's planning something with that woman. Something big. Involves a wedding dress. Check Noble Bridal on Rodeo Drive." Celeste stared at the note, her hands shaking. A wedding dress? Surely this had to be some misunderstanding. Yet, something in John's apologetic eyes told her it was real and that she needed to act before Alex did. Meanwhile, Dahlia Redwood had fully ensnared Alex's attention. Her initial plan was simple: find a wealthy, influential man to help fund her fashion line. Once she discovered Alex Kensington's vulnerabilities, his desire for excitement, his frustration with familial expectations, she capitalized on them with razor-sharp cunning. She became his confidant, the person he turned to after arguments with his father or disagreements with the board of Kensington Commercial Holdings. Over time, Dahlia demanded more than a quiet fling. She wanted a real commitment and the status that came with it. One evening, as they sipped champagne in a private penthouse suite that Alex had borrowed from a friend, Dahlia posed a question that made Alex's heart skip a beat. "What if we just left everything behind? Your father, your board, your wife, everything. We could start fresh." Alex blinked, swirling the champagne in his crystal flute. "That's complicated," he said. "I have responsibilities, and Celeste is pregnant. I can't just..." Dahlia laughed softly, tracing a finger along his collar. "Haven't you told me time and again that you hate living under your father's shadow? That you despise how your wife's family always expects you to be the perfect son-in-law? Don't you want a life on your own terms?" He exhaled. face taut. Of course I do, but I never said I'd abandon my child. She tilted her head, eyes gleaming. You wouldn't be abandoning anyone. You could still provide for the baby. But you and I, we could be free. She paused, letting the idea brew in the hush of the room. Then she reached into her sleek black purse and pulled out a glossy bridal magazine. I saw this dress, she whispered, flipping to a page featuring a shimmering lace gown. And I thought, if you ever left your old life behind, maybe I could wear something like this. For us. Blood roared in Alex's ears. The irony was brutal. He was already married, about to become a father. Yet the adrenaline surged in his veins at the image of Dahlia in a wedding dress, the taboo thrill of it. He found himself nodding, or perhaps just failing to refuse. Over the next week she pressed the matter, requesting they go to an upscale bridal boutique so she could try it on, just for fun. In a moment of reckless madness, Alex agreed. After all, Dahlia was the only part of his life that felt exciting these days. He promised himself it didn't mean anything, just a silly escapade. But Dahlia saw it differently. It was a test of his loyalty to her, a sign that his marriage was truly in jeopardy. She arranged an appointment at Noble Bridal, the exclusive salon on Rodeo Drive, famous for dressing Hollywood's elite brides. When Alex's driver, John Lowell, overheard Dahlia gushing about her upcoming dress fitting, he knew something catastrophic was afoot. Unable to watch Celeste be blindsided, John decided to slip her that cryptic note. The stage was set for the most explosive confrontation Beverly Hills had seen in a very long time. The day Celeste found the note from John, she was a bundle of nerves. She felt ill, more from anxiety than her pregnancy. If Dahlia Redwood was the other woman, and Alex was brazen enough to take her to try on a wedding dress, the betrayal was beyond anything she'd imagined. Curled up on a velvet chaise in her bedroom, she agonized over how to respond. Was it better to divorce him quietly and walk away? Could the marriage be saved, or did she even want it to be? Tanya Willis, her best friend, rushed over the moment Celeste texted her about the note. Tanya found Celeste pale, with dark circles under her eyes, wearing a loose black robe that mirrored her melancholy. You need to find out if this is real, Tanya said firmly. Don't let him gaslight you into thinking you're crazy. Celeste nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. But I'm pregnant, Tanya. This stress, it's not good for the baby. Tanya placed a reassuring hand on Celeste's belly. I know, sweetie, but better to confront it now than live in denial. You want the truth, right? Right, Celeste murmured. Slowly, a fierce determination ignited within her. She wouldn't be the docile wife who turned a blind eye. If Alex was truly humiliating her to this extent, she intended to face him head-on. Together, they devised a plan. Celeste would call Noble Bridal anonymously to confirm whether a private fitting was indeed scheduled under Dahlia Redwood's name. Then she would decide whether to show up unannounced. Tanya insisted on accompanying her for emotional support. With trembling fingers, Celeste dialed the boutique's number. Keeping her voice steady, she inquired about an upcoming bride named Dahlia Redwood. A receptionist cheerfully confirmed, "Yes, Miss Redwood has a private appointment at 3 p.m. today. It's under the name A. Kensington and D. Redwood." Celeste's heart plunged, but she forced a polite thank you and hung up. So it was undeniably real. Her mind reeled with questions. Was Alex planning to marry Dahlia, leave her and the baby behind? Or was it some sick game Dahlia had orchestrated? She felt anger boiling in her veins, but also a heavy sadness for the child she was carrying. This baby deserved a father who would cherish them, not this reckless, deceitful man. She stood, gazing at her reflection in the mirror. Her glossy brown hair was pulled into a messy bun, her eyes rimmed with fatigue. In that moment, a wave of empowerment washed over her. She would not show up weeping in a corner. If she was about to confront her husband and his mistress, she would do it on her own terms, calm, in control, and wearing something that symbolized the funeral of her marriage, if need be. Without a word, she opened her wardrobe and took out a sleek, flowing black dress, one she usually wore for high-end evening events, but which now felt like an armor of mourning. She might be pregnant, but she wouldn't hide. Let the world witness the final act of betrayal in all its ugly glory. At exactly 2:55 p.m., a chauffeured black SUV pulled up in front of Noble Bridal on Rodeo Drive. Dahlia Redwood, wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a designer handbag, stepped out. She tossed her hair over her shoulder, practically buzzing with anticipation. Alex emerged next, looking dashing in a tailored grey suit. He nervously scanned the sidewalk, aware that this was a bold move, but Dahlia had insisted they do it publicly but discreetly. In her words, it was a test of his devotion. Inside, the boutique manager, Monique Chauvet, greeted them with warm smiles. Noble Bridal catered to the most exclusive clientele. A handful of staff whisked Dahlia away to a lavish-fitting suite, complete with plush carpeting and a chandelier that glinted like starlight. Designer gowns in protective plastic were lined up, waiting for Dahlia to try them on. Alex hung back by the lounge area, sipping champagne brought by a young attendant named Isabel. Every nerve in his body felt on edge. He glanced repeatedly at his phone, half expecting an enraged call from Celeste. But thus far, radio silence. "Stop fidgeting," Dahlia teased, stepping into a corner to slip into the first dress. "You agreed to this. Relax and have fun." She pulled the curtain closed with a flirtatious wink, leaving Alex with a swirl of conflicting emotions. Excitement, fear, guilt. Meanwhile, across the street, another car arrived. Out stepped Celeste, accompanied by Tanya. The pregnant wife wore that elegant black dress, hugging her baby bump in a way that made her look both vulnerable and formidable. She had thrown a silk shawl over her shoulders, and a pair of dark sunglasses shielded her tear-stained eyes. The morning's heartbreak now transformed into resolute purpose. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Tanya whispered, looping an arm through Celeste's for support. Celeste exhaled unsteadily. "I have to. I need the truth, even if it hurts." Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest, threatening to undermine her composure. She took a moment to center herself, then strode into Noble Bridal with unflinching determination. Inside, Monique Chauvet looked up from the reception desk. She was about to inform them that the boutique was booked for a private appointment, but the steely glint in Celeste's eyes made her pause. Something about this elegantly dressed woman signaled that a refusal could lead to a scene far more dramatic than any the boutique had witnessed. Without waiting for permission, Celeste glided across the boutique's gleaming floor, scanning the area for any sign of Alex and Dahlia. Tanya followed, anxious but loyal. They passed racks of ethereal gowns and plush ottomans. A hush fell over the staff, who recognized the tension crackling in the air. Finally, Celeste heard Dahlia's voice floating out from behind a half-drawn curtain. A wave of nausea struck her, but she pressed forward. Tanya gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Summoning her courage, Celeste pushed aside the curtain. What she saw made her stomach twist. Dahlia stood on a small, mirrored platform, garbed in a lace wedding gown that sparkled under the overhead lights. Alex was seated a few feet away, clutching a champagne flute, his eyes locked on Dahlia's figure with a mix of admiration and guilt. For a moment, time froze. Dahlia spotted Celeste first, her face draining of color. Alex turned, and his champagne flute slipped from his grip, shattering on the floor. Every person in the sweet boutique staff included held their breath, witnessing the collision of two worlds that were never meant to converge. Celeste's voice wavered as she spoke, but her gaze remained fixed on Alex. "Well, isn't this cozy?" she managed, the sarcasm cutting through the stunned silence. My husband picking out a wedding dress for another woman. For a long, silent beat, the boutique's luxurious fitting room felt like a stage set for tragedy. Dahlia Redwood, perched on the mirrored platform in that ornate gown, looked as though she might topple right off. Alex Kensington was rooted in place, shock and fear contorting his features. Celeste, however, commanded the space with a calm ferocity that belied her trembling heart. How did you?" Alex stammered, words failing him. His gaze shifted between Celeste's pregnant belly and Dahlia's wedding dress, the severity of his betrayal crashing into him like a tidal wave. Celeste maintained her composure, though tears threatened to spill. She tightened her shawl around her shoulders, ignoring the sting of betrayal that made her chest feel tight. "It doesn't matter how I found out," she said softly. "What matters is that I did. Here you are, prancing around with another woman when I'm carrying your child." Dahlia Redwood finally snapped out of her daze. With practiced arrogance, she smoothed the dress fabric and tilted her chin high. "This doesn't concern you," Dahlia said, though her voice quivered. "Alex was never happy with you. You can't keep him trapped just because you're pregnant." The words stung Celeste like a slap, but she channeled her pain into a steely glare. "You can have him," she bit back. "I only showed up to see how low he'd sink, and apparently the depth is immeasurable." A ripple of shock passed through the onlooking staff, some of whom whispered among themselves. Dahlia bristled. "You'll regret that," she hissed. "He's the one who wanted to be here with me." Before Celeste could respond, Alex found his voice. "Dahlia, stop," he pleaded, turning to Celeste with desperation. "Celeste, I can explain." Celeste repeated, her voice trembling with emotion. She gestured to Dahlia, swathed in that bridal gown. "I think the picture is clear. You're planning a new wedding before ending the first." "It's not like that," Alex insisted, stepping forward. "I never intended to remarry. Dahlia wanted to try on dresses for her design project, or some nonsense. I got caught up in it." "Liar," Dahlia spat, incensed at being thrown under the bus. She hopped down from the platform, the gown rustling like a phantom in motion. "You told me you wanted a life with me. You said you were done with this dull marriage. Don't pretend you're innocent now." Celeste felt her throat constrict, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Tanya slipped an arm around her for support. Anger flashed in Alex's eyes as he turned on Dahlia. "You manipulated me. You knew I was under stress, that my father's demands were crushing me. You exploited that." Dahlia laughed coldly. "You're a grown man, Alex. Don't blame me for your choices." She then flicked her gaze to Celeste, her tone laced with vindictiveness. "I didn't force him to come here, sweetheart. He wanted to see me in white." Celeste's body trembled. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but she also felt an odd sense of numbness. "I hope you're happy with yourself," she said to Dahlia, voice wavering. "You stole my husband, or at least the version of him I thought existed. But the real Alex must be a spineless coward to do this. So you two deserve each other." Alex pressed his hands against his face, frustration and regret washing over him. "Celeste, this got out of hand. I was too weak to break it off, and Dahlia kept pushing. I never wanted to lose you or the baby." Dahlia rolled her eyes. "You were the one complaining about your nagging wife, about how boring she'd become during her pregnancy. Don't tell me I forced you." Celeste's stomach lurched. She pressed a hand against the life inside her, feeling protective and determined to shield her unborn child from this toxic scene. With fresh tears falling, she locked eyes on Alex. "So that's how you see me? Boring?" Her voice cracked. "Celeste, please," he began, but she cut him off, lifting a trembling hand as though warding off a blow. "No more. I'm done." Each syllable burned her throat. She turned to the staff, their faces contorted with sympathy or scandalized excitement. "I'm sorry you all had to witness this. We'll take our leave now." Before she could exit, Dahlia made one final taunt. "Don't forget to send the divorce papers," she said, her lips curving into a smug smile. "We've got a wedding to plan." Celeste hesitated, fury twisting through her, but ultimately she shook her head and walked away, flanked by Tanya. Alex tried to follow, calling her name, but she strode on, leaving him behind in a storm of regret and humiliation. The hush that descended over Noble Bridal was the hush of stunned spectators who had just witnessed a marriage's funeral. Celeste left the boutique feeling like her heart had been ripped to shreds. She and Tanya sat in the car for several minutes, silent tears coursing down Celeste's cheeks. Finally, she managed to speak. "I need to get away from here," she said, voice hoarse. Tanya nodded, instructing the driver to take them to Celeste's parents' home in Santa Monica. There, Celeste found comfort in her mother, Diana, who held her daughter close, tears shining in her own eyes as she learned the extent of Alex's betrayal. Michael Hathaway, her father, was livid, pacing the living room and muttering curses against the Kensington name. The shock of discovering that her beloved son-in-law was on the verge of planning a wedding with another woman felt unimaginable, while Celeste desperately tried to keep herself composed for the sake of the baby. A swirling mixture of despair, rage, and heartbreak consumed her. She called her obstetrician, Dr. Sonia Grant, explaining that she was under immense emotional stress and wanted to ensure her baby was safe. Dr. Grant recommended immediate rest and a stress management plan, warning that intense emotional turmoil could risk preterm labor. Across town, Alex reeled from the fiasco at Noble Bridal. Dahlia Redwood, humiliated by his attempt to shift blame, stormed out of the boutique, refusing to speak to him. The paparazzi, alerted by a loose-lipped staff member, had already begun sniffing around for details. By evening, gossip websites and social media were abuzz with cryptic updates. La Millionaire caught in wedding scandal, pregnant wife confronts husband and mistress in bridal boutique meltdown. Alex's phone rang incessantly. His father, Christopher Kensington, demanded an explanation. His mother, Evelyn, was in tears, lamenting the family's ruined reputation. And Celeste was unreachable. She had blocked his number to shield herself from the onslaught of heartbreak. Even Dahlia refused to pick up, presumably furious at being portrayed as the manipulator in front of his wife. That night, alone in the massive master bedroom, Alex stared at the bed he once shared with Celeste, consumed by regret. He pictured her in that elegant black dress, how heartbreak had tightened her expression. For the first time, the gravity of his actions struck him like a physical blow. Dahlia's hold on him had been powerful, but was it worth losing the woman he actually loved, the mother of his child? Anguish twisted in his gut. He had never felt so powerless. There was only one thing he was certain of now. The grand illusions Dahlia offered a new life, some thrilling romance, were ephemeral. Perhaps it had been a reckless fantasy from the start. Yet his betrayal was all too real, and the damage he'd inflicted on Celeste seemed irreparable. As he lay awake on a bed that felt colder than ever, he realized the next morning would bring more than just the glare of daylight. It would bring the consequences of the disaster he set in motion. Over the next week, Alex made countless attempts to contact Celeste. He left voicemails that ranged from frantic apologies to tearful confessions of love. He sent flower arrangements so large that they overflowed the front porch of her parents' house, each accompanied by hand-written letters begging for forgiveness. But Celeste, determined to protect her emotional health and the unborn child, refused to respond. She lived in a blur of heartbreak, leaning on her mother for support and focusing on her interior design projects whenever her energy permitted. She consulted a divorce attorney, Patricia Leonard, a formidable woman with a reputation for unyielding advocacy. Patricia explained the steps involved in leaving a high-net-worth marriage. "You have strong grounds for infidelity and emotional distress," Patricia asserted, "especially considering your pregnancy. We can aim for a settlement that ensures financial security for you and the baby." Yet, Celeste hesitated to finalize the papers. Despite the epic betrayal, a conflicted part of her still clung to the memories of the Alex she had once loved. She felt torn between seeking retribution for his cruelty and acknowledging that her child deserved a father figure, however imperfect. Torn, she decided to take things day by day, at least until the baby's birth. Meanwhile, Dahlia Redwood found her own illusions crumbling. She had hoped Alex's meltdown at the boutique was just an emotional outburst. But as he retreated from her calls, Dahlia felt her grip on him loosening. Worse yet, her attempts to salvage the romance by texting him, "I miss you, we can still run away together," were met with cold silence. She recognized that her moment of triumph had turned into a humiliating spectacle, and the social scene began to distance itself from her. The overshadowing scandal made her toxic. No one wanted to be associated with a mistress who'd nearly broken up a powerful family. In desperation, Dahlia tried to approach Alex at his office, but security was instructed not to let her in. She then staked out the lobby of Kensington Commercial Holdings, only to be escorted away by building management. The final straw came when Christopher Kensington dispatched a cease and desist letter, threatening legal action if Dahlia continued her harassment. Furious and feeling victimized, Dahlia realized she was cornered. The Redwood-Kensington relationship, if one could even call it that, was dead in the water. Alex, on the other hand, had retreated into himself. He spent most days either locked in corporate boardrooms or in the emptiness of the mansion, rereading Celeste's last text, sent before she blocked him, where she simply wrote, "I believed in you. Never again." Eventually, he found a shred of hope when Celeste's attorney arranged a brief meeting to discuss the possibility of an amicable resolution. He arrived 30 minutes early, heart pounding. Stepping into the neutral, sterile environment of a law office in downtown Los Angeles, he hoped it might be the first step in winning Celeste back, even if it meant accepting blame and paying whatever settlement was demanded. But when Celeste walked in, accompanied by Patricia Leonard, her eyes were icy with a pain that flickered beneath the surface. She refused to meet his gaze. The negotiations were excruciating. Alex offered generous financial terms, repeated heartfelt apologies, and insisted he wanted to remain part of the baby's life. Celeste listened, but her silence spoke volumes. As the session ended, he mustered the courage to speak to her directly, free from lawyers' ears. "Celeste, I don't expect your forgiveness," he said, voice cracked with regret, "but please, let me be there for our child. And if you ever find it in your heart to give me another chance, I swear I won't waste it." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I can't make any promises. I have to protect myself and this baby first." Their gazes locked, two people who once shared dreams and a life, now bound by heartbreak and regrets. The moment ended when Patricia Leonard ushered Celeste away, leaving Alex alone in the conference room. The only thing heavier than the silence was the uncertain future looming ahead. In the weeks that followed, Celeste settled back into a semblance of routine at her parents' home. She visited Dr. Grant frequently, ensuring her pregnancy remained healthy despite the emotional stress. With each passing day, her belly grew, and she felt the baby's kicks, a constant reminder that life goes on, even when hearts are broken. Tanya and her mother, Diana, threw a small, intimate baby shower in the family's backyard, showering Celeste with gifts and well wishes. The attendance was limited to her closest friends and a few loyal clients. Noticeably absent was Alex, who wasn't invited. But late in the afternoon, when most guests had left, a delivery arrived, a delicate bassinet adorned with ribbons, accompanied by a note in Alex's handwriting. It read, "For our child who deserves the best of everything, I remain sorry for everything I've done, Alex." Tears clouded Celeste's vision as she ran her hands over the soft blankets. She remembered the day they found out she was pregnant. Alex had lifted her into his arms, spinning her around, giddy with joy. That memory clashed painfully with the image of him in the bridal boutique with Dahlia Redwood. She realized with a pang that even if Alex's betrayal was unforgivable, he was still the baby's father. And the baby's well-being might one day hinge on them finding common ground. Elsewhere, Alex saw a therapist in an effort to understand his self-sabotaging behavior. Through those sessions, he dug into the childhood complexities of growing up under Christopher Kensington's strict rule, always feeling overshadowed by a father who seemed to value business success over personal happiness. He admitted to the therapist, Dr. Marvin Lee, that Celeste had been the best thing in his life, and his affair with Dahlia was a reckless manifestation of pent-up resentment and fear of fatherhood. Over time, therapy became a cornerstone of his daily routine, guiding him to confront his guilt head-on. Christopher Kensington, for his part, softened his stance once he saw how deeply remorseful Alex was. Rather than disowning him, Christopher offered paternal advice for the first time in Alex's adult life. "You messed up, son. I can't change that." But from one Kensington to another, never stop fighting for family. Evelyn Kensington, too, reached out to Celeste through heartfelt letters, begging her to reconsider finalizing the divorce. Yet Celeste remained guarded. Trust, she believed, was not something that could be restored with a few kind words or expensive gestures. She had a baby to protect. If Alex wanted a place in their child's life, he would need to prove himself over time, beyond empty promises. As her due date approached, Celeste found her heart softened slightly by Alex's consistent gestures, flowers, letters, and supportive messages delivered through her attorney. He never showed up unannounced, never tried to force contact. Instead, he seemed to respect her boundaries, focusing on therapy and ensuring financial preparations were in place for the baby's arrival. One day, Celeste woke up early with a sense of calm she hadn't felt in months. She realized something. Though Alex's betrayal had wounded her deeply, she still cared about the man who was about to become the father of her child. Perhaps it was love, or perhaps it was a lingering attachment. But for the baby's sake, and maybe even for her own, she resolved to give him a chance to show he'd changed. Not to resume their marriage without conditions, but to see if he could be a responsible, loving father. In a moment of decision, she unblocked his number and sent a short text, "I'm willing to meet for coffee. Public place. Just to talk about the baby's future." She pressed send, her heart thudding. Moments later, Alex's reply arrived. "Thank you. Name a time and place. I'll be there." They met at a quiet cafe overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Santa Monica, the air tinged with the salty breeze of crashing waves. Alex arrived first, dressed more modestly than usual, no flashy suit or extravagant watch. He looked anxious, hands stuffed into his pockets. Celeste, wearing a simple maternity dress that accentuated her round belly, walked up with measured steps, uncertain whether her heart would betray her composure. They chose a corner table, away from other patrons, each nursing a latte in silence for a few moments. Finally, Alex found the courage to speak. "Thank you for meeting me," he said softly. Celeste nodded, her gaze drifting out the window. "We need to figure out how this will work after the baby is born. I'm not sure if I'm ready to finalize any decisions about us. But I do want you involved, if you can be stable." He leaned forward, earnest. "I want to be there for every milestone. I've made mistakes, but I swear I'm working on myself." My therapist has helped me see how I let resentment and fear cloud my judgment. I won't lie, I know I've hurt you more than words can repair. But I need you to know I am committed to being the best father I can be. His sincerity struck a chord in Celeste. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. Part of me wants to believe you. But trust doesn't just bounce back. It has to be rebuilt brick by brick. He swallowed hard. I understand. And I'll wait as long as it takes. They discussed logistics, possible co-parenting schedules, whether Alex could attend upcoming prenatal appointments, and how to handle the baby's last name if they divorced. With every issue raised, Celeste noticed the real remorse in his answers, no deflection, no blame. For the first time since the fiasco, she sensed he was truly remorseful, not simply desperate. An hour passed, and as they stood to leave, Alex hesitantly placed a hand near her belly. "May I?" he asked, eyes misty with emotion. She paused, then nodded. Gently, he rested a palm on the curve of her stomach, feeling a faint kick from within. The contact broke something in both of them. Months of animosity cracked, letting in a glimmer of shared wonder. They locked eyes, and a tear slipped down Celeste's cheek. That tender moment was short-lived. As they exited the cafe, a sudden flash of cameras and shouted questions assaulted them. Paparazzi had spotted the estranged couple together, and within seconds, they were surrounded. "Celeste, is it true you caught Alex with another woman at a bridal shop?" one yelled. "Mr. Kensington, are you divorcing your wife for Dahlia Redwood?" hollered another. Alex shielded Celeste, guiding her protectively through the throng to her car. She felt her pulse spike, fear colliding with the baby's movements. The intrusion reminded her of how public their scandal had become, how many prying eyes wanted a piece of their tragedy. Safely inside the car, Celeste's hands shook as she fastened the seatbelt. Alex, standing outside her window, offered a strained smile. "I'm sorry," he mouthed, referring to both the paparazzi ambush and the greater betrayal that set it all in motion. She managed a small nod, then drove away, heart pounding with a mix of fear, sadness, and the faintest trace of hope. The final chapter of this fraught saga began on a stormy night. Celeste had returned home from a quiet dinner with her parents when an intense contraction gripped her. Her water broke soon after. Panic and adrenaline surged through her as Diana and Michael hastily gathered her hospital bag, whisking her to St. Mary's Medical Center in Santa Monica. The baby was coming earlier than expected, nearly 3 weeks before her due date. Between waves of contractions, Celeste instructed Tanya to notify Alex. Though not entirely sure of her feelings toward him, she knew he should be present for the birth if he wished. He arrived breathless and pale, frantically signing in at the maternity ward. The look in his eyes was a tempest of worry and anticipation. As the hours dragged on, Celeste labored through the pain, tears mixing with sweat. Alex hovered by her side, respectful, supportive, not once pushing his luck or demanding to be her primary support. Instead, he simply offered his hand to squeeze, water to drink, or a comforting word. Her parents and Tanya were there too, forming a protective circle around Celeste. The tension, heartbreak, and betrayal all receded in the face of new life preparing to enter the world. Finally, after a labor that stretched into the early morning, Celeste gave a final, anguished push. The baby's cry pierced the air, a wail that signaled the start of a new life. A flood of relief and emotion washed over the entire room. The doctor announced they had a healthy baby girl. Celeste wept, reaching out as the newborn was placed gently on her chest. Tiny, pink, and perfect, this child represented the future, a fragile but profound new bond. Alex stood at the edge of the hospital bed, tears streaming freely. Despite the tension between them, Celeste saw genuine joy and awe in his eyes. The next few hours felt surreal. Celeste clung to her daughter, who they named Aria Kensington, after some tender discussion. Even though Celeste considered reverting to her maiden name for herself, for now the baby bore Alex's surname, a reflection that both parents still shared a connection that might not be fully severed. In the quiet hush of dawn, nurses wheeled Celeste to a private room. Alex followed, sitting in a chair beside her bed as she cradled the newborn. With exhaustion etched into every line of her face, Celeste looked up at him. "She's beautiful," she whispered. He nodded, tears in his eyes, voice trembling. "She is. Thank you for letting me be here, for letting me see this moment." She didn't respond verbally, but she offered him the baby. Carefully, he took Aria in his arms, a mixture of terror and wonder dancing across his features. It was the first time he held his daughter, and in that instant, something within him shifted irreversibly. As Celeste watched him, she felt a pang of longing for what their life could have been, if not for betrayal. The question lingered in her mind: was it possible to rebuild, or was the foundation too irrevocably cracked? Celeste and baby Aria spent 3 days in the hospital, undergoing the usual checks. Alex visited daily, bringing fresh flowers and baby essentials. He dared not push Celeste into any discussions of marriage or reconciliation. Instead, they spoke about simple things: Aria's feeding schedule, the color of her eyes, a mix of Celeste's hazel and Alex's dark brown. The next pediatrician appointment. It was a precarious peace, bound by the vulnerability of a newborn life. When Celeste was discharged, her parents welcomed her and Aria back home, promising round-the-clock help. Alex offered to set up a nursery in the Kensington mansion, but Celeste politely refused. "I'm not ready to move back in," she said softly. He accepted her decision, though sadness glimmered in his eyes. In the following weeks, they settled into a semblance of co-parenting. Alex visited often, always texting Celeste in advance to avoid intrusions. He bottle-fed Aria, changed diapers, and even rocked her to sleep under Celeste's watchful gaze. The sight of him cherishing their daughter tugged at Celeste's heart. She saw glimpses of the man she fell in love with, overshadowed by the man who had shattered her trust. Meanwhile, Dahlia Redwood had vanished from their lives. Rumors swirled that she left Los Angeles in search of more pliable prey. The scandal that once dominated tabloids gradually faded, overshadowed by new Hollywood dramas. Alex quietly distanced himself from any mention of her, determined to prove to Celeste that chapter was closed for good. As the emotional dust settled, Celeste realized she stood at a crossroads. Part of her wanted to finalize the divorce, to extricate herself from the labyrinth of betrayal and heartbreak. Yet another part, sparked by moments of co-parenting harmony, considered the possibility of rebuilding. She knew it would take more than apologies. It would demand consistent honesty, transparency, and genuine remorse on Alex's part. Time alone would reveal if he could rise to the challenge. Late one evening, as she rocked Aria to sleep, Celeste gazed at the infant's peaceful face and felt a surge of gratitude for the new life she held. Whatever path lay ahead, reconciliation or separation, she drew strength from knowing she had survived the deepest betrayal imaginable. In that sense, she was no longer the naive, trusting wife, but a stronger, more self-aware woman. Alex continued therapy, refusing to let shame bury him. He made daily phone calls to Celeste, checking on Aria's progress. Sometimes Celeste allowed him a chance to talk about more personal matters, his regrets, his hopes, his promise that he would spend the rest of his days making amends if she ever gave him the opportunity. Slowly, walls began to crack, replaced by cautious warmth. One Sunday, Celeste agreed to bring Aria to the Kensington mansion for a family dinner with Christopher and Evelyn. It was a quiet affair, no paparazzi in sight, just the immediate family cooing over the newest Kensington. Celeste observed Alex's interactions with his parents, how even Christopher softened around his granddaughter. She saw a flicker of sincerity in the patriarch's eyes when he whispered an apology for the pain their family had caused her. For the first time in months, Celeste felt something akin to acceptance. She took a deep breath, concluding that maybe, just maybe, Arya's arrival could transform them all. Forgiveness was not guaranteed, nor was a marital revival, but their daughter's presence reminded them that some bonds like parenthood transcend betrayal. Months slipped by, each day a testament to fragile steps toward healing. Celeste and Alex drifted into an unspoken arrangement. They shared the joy and labor of raising Arya, while keeping personal boundaries in place. They rarely discussed Dahlia Redwood or the near-wedding fiasco. Instead, they forged a new, cautious friendship built around their child's well-being. Tanya, ever the loyal friend, occasionally nudged Celeste. "Do you see yourself reconciling with Alex, or is the divorce inevitable?" Celeste would only shrug, emotions too tangled to pass. Patricia Leonard still had the divorce papers ready for filing, but Celeste didn't sign them. For now, she found solace in taking it slow, giving Alex a chance to prove he was a changed man. And slowly he did. No more secret phone calls, no suspicious absences. He invited Celeste to attend therapy sessions with him, where Dr. Lee guided them through the wreckage of the affair. Tears were shed, grudges laid bare. On more than one occasion, Celeste stormed out, convinced she could never truly trust him again. Yet she returned, drawn by the glimpses of genuine remorse and the desire to give their child something better. As Arya approached her first birthday, Celeste agreed to a trial separation under the same roof. She moved part-time into a guest suite in the Kensington mansion, guaranteeing that Arya could spend equal time with both parents without shuttling between two homes. It was awkward at first, living in proximity yet maintaining separate lives. But within the same walls, they discovered new ways to communicate, whether it was sharing a coffee in the morning or passing each other in the hallway with Arya dozing in one's arms. During these months, Alex's father, Christopher, recognized the shift. He discreetly offered Alex advice on balancing business with fatherhood, praising him for his determination to salvage the family. Evelyn, though guilt-ridden over her son's mistakes, doted on Celeste, offering to babysit Arya so Celeste could return to her interior design projects without worry. Finally, on a crisp autumn evening, over a year after the scandal at Noble Bridal, Celeste and Alex found themselves alone in the mansion's sunroom. Arya was asleep, and the household staff had turned in. Moonlight streamed through the glass ceiling, illuminating the tension that still hovered between them. Seated across from each other, they sipped herbal tea, exchanging occasional glances. Alex leaned forward. "Celeste, I know I can't erase the past, but I'm asking if we can close that chapter and write a new one together." He paused, voice trembling with sincerity. "Will you marry me again? Renew our vows on honest terms?" Her heart pounded, tears brimming. She remembered Dahlia Redwood in that wedding gown, the heartbreak that nearly destroyed her. But she also saw how far Alex had come through therapy, his unwavering presence in Arya's life, and the absolute contrition he showed daily. Could she risk heartbreak again? Carefully, she set her mug down. "I'm terrified, Alex," she admitted. "Terrified that if I say yes, you'll hurt me again." He reached for her hand. "I understand. Take as long as you need. My pledge is to never betray your trust again. If that means waiting a lifetime for you to truly forgive me, I'll wait." In the hush of that moonlit room, Celeste gazed at the father of her child, the man who had once humiliated her in front of the world, but had since dedicated himself to redemption. Gently, she clasped his hand back. "I can't give you an answer tonight," she whispered. "But I do see the changes you've made, and that means maybe one day I can say yes." He exhaled, relief and sadness mingling in his expression. "That's enough for me. he said softly. And for the first time in a long while, Celeste felt a fragile optimism bloom in her chest, an inkling that, amid the rubble of betrayal, new beginnings could blossom. The scandal at Noble Bridal may have drawn the world's attention, but it was only the beginning of a long, painful journey for Celeste and Alex Kensington. Their marriage, once teetering on the brink of destruction, found a glimmer of hope through self-reflection, consistent honesty, and the unwavering bond they shared with their newborn daughter, Aria. While Dahlia Redwood's sudden disappearance and the tabloids' fleeting obsession might fade in time, the lasting impact of betrayal and the possibility of genuine forgiveness remained a choice only they could make. Will Celeste and Alex fully reclaim their love, or will their relationship remain a cautious co-parenting arrangement? This powerful story reminds us that even in the face of heartbreak, we can strive for redemption, healing, and hope. If this dramatic saga moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support enables us to continue bringing you gripping, real-life, inspired stories that shed light on the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for watching.